That was me, a man proud of my life, my beautiful wife, and a career that was finally starting to take off. Until, on what should have been the happiest night of the year, the company Christmas party, I saw the most brutal betrayal unfold right before my eyes, my wife Julie, wrapped in the arms of my worst enemy at work, Marcus. Under the dim glow of the empty rooftop, I stood frozen as my heart twisted with every stolen glance, every secret touch, every laugh they shared. They weren't just two people caught in a careless moment, they were conspirators in a web of lies and hatred. I didn't scream, didn't act out. Instead, I quietly recorded every frame, preparing evidence for a revenge they would never see coming. Before we dive into this story, drop a comment and tell me which city you're watching from. I want to connect with you as we go through this together. Now, settle in and listen closely, because this isn't just a tale about cheating. This is a psychological battleground filled with love, heartbreak, anger, and an unbreakable will to fight back. You're about to journey with me, a man on the edge, navigating the darkest depths of betrayal, plotting a ruthless revenge that cuts deeper than any wound. This is a story about resilience, raw emotions, and reclaiming power when everything you believed in has been torn apart. Are you ready? Then let's begin. This is where everything changed. Where trust was shattered, but my fire was only just beginning to burn. The night of the company Christmas party was supposed to be just another evening, a chance to relax, celebrate, and maybe share a dance or two with my wife, Julie. But as I walked into that crowded room, an unbearable weight settled in my chest, though I couldn't yet name it. I had no idea that beneath the glittering lights and festive music, my world was about to unravel in the sharpest, cruelest way imaginable. Julie, radiant as ever, was the perfect picture of grace and charm. Everyone admired her, but to me, she was the center of my universe, the one person I trusted above all. Yet, tonight, in the chaos of laughter and clinking glasses, I saw a sight that made my blood run cold: Marcus. Marcus, the man who had made every day at work a struggle, who resented me from the moment I arrived, and whom I had always seen as nothing but an obstacle and a threat. And yet, there they were, with lips locked in secretiveness and hands entangled in betrayal. I stood frozen on the edge of that rooftop, heart pounding against my ribs like a drowning man desperate for air. I fought a tidal wave of emotions, disbelief crashing into anger, and a sinking, crushing sorrow. The jovial party below faded into silence as I retreated into myself, witnessing the unraveling of everything I thought I knew. They whispered, giggled, moved with a reckless abandon that seemed to mock the very vows I thought bound us. The betrayal was raw, undeniable. But I didn't lash out. I didn't throw accusations or screams into the night air. Instead, I reached slowly for my phone, my hands trembling, not with fury but with numb determination. I had to hold on to something real. Every stolen glance, every intimate touch, every whispered promise between them was recorded. Not just as cold proof, but as fuel for the fire that was building inside me. In that moment, I realized this was no longer just about a broken marriage. It was about survival, survival of my dignity, my sanity, and ultimately, my soul. And it was here, in the darkest hour, that the real battle began. Amid the turmoil, my mind flickered back to the tensions that had brewed for months between Marcus and me: office politics, whispered rumors, stolen credit for my work. Marcus was not just an adversary at the office, he was a toxin seeping into every corner of my life. Knowing this made the sting of betrayal cut even deeper, like a double-edged sword twisting inside me. I thought of my few close friends: Joshua, my oldest college buddy, who had always said, "Trust is earned, not given." I found myself longing for someone to talk to, a witness to the chaos, but even then, I held my silence, nursing the storm alone. As the party carried on, laughter echoing from below, I forced myself to move away from that haunting rooftop. The night had changed me. What began as shock now turned to a simmering resolve. This wasn't the end of my story, it was the beginning of a war for justice, for truth, and for reclaiming what was stolen from me. After that night on the rooftop, the betrayal didn't just haunt me at home, it shadowed every step I took at work. Marcus was not simply my wife's lover. He was my enemy in every sense, a man who saw me as a threat from day one and made it his mission to make my professional life miserable. From the moment I stepped into the office, Marcus's hostility was relentless, subtle yet sharp as a poisoned dart. When I joined the team, I worked hard, using my skills to streamline processes, cut down what used to take Marcus a week into just a few days. Instead of praise, I earned his cold glares and whispered schemes. He dug for flaws in my work with furious determination, hoping to tear down my reputation piece by piece. And behind closed doors, he spun stories, sowing seeds of doubt among colleagues and even manipulating management's view of me. I tried to stay above it, focused on my job, measuring each day not by Marcus's antics but by my own worth. But the tension was palpable. It wasn't just about office politics. It was a psychological cage that tightened with every sneer, every snide comment I overheard. I found myself isolated, my once small but supportive circle thinning under the pressure of whispered gossip and Marcus's crude jokes. One colleague, Noah, was a double-edged sword, loud, opinionated, and sometimes crossing the line with his abrasive humor. He made no secret of his disdain for Marcus and didn't hesitate to point out the toxic games Marcus played. Noah became my unexpected ally, though his bluntness sometimes embarrassed me. Through him, I learned more about Marcus's hidden life, his secret family, the lies he told to everyone at work claiming to be single, his manipulative charm that fooled many. Still, it was a lonely war. The office, once a place I thought was neutral ground, had become a battlefield where betrayals were whispered louder than meetings, and trust was currency I couldn't afford. The weight of Marcus's presence crushed my spirit in ways the Christmas party betrayal alone never could. This ceaseless friction fueled the fire in my heart, not just anger against Marcus and Julie, but a raw determination to reclaim control over my life, my dignity, and my future. I realized that the fight would not end when I left the rooftop that night, it had just begun. After months of silent suffering and the battle waging not only in my heart but also under the fluorescent office lights, I realized I couldn't fight this war alone. The weight of betrayal was too heavy, and Marcus's reach too long. I needed someone on my side, not just a companion, but a true ally who understood the venom of infidelity and deceit. It was then that I thought of Sandra, Marcus's wife. At first, the idea felt bitter, almost absurd. She too was a victim, worn and betrayed by the same man who had shattered my life. But unlike me, I didn't know her. I didn't even know if she suspected the truth. All I had were fragments, rumors whispered through the grapevine, small hints caught in conversations. That's when I turned to Noah, my blunt but surprisingly loyal colleague, who had become an uneasy confidant. He was loud, often brash, but had a strange way of knowing things others overlooked. Marcus's wife? You want her name and contacts, huh? Noah smirked that day in the break room, his voice low but filled with a knowing edge. It was the kind of smirk that could either get you into trouble or out of one. Reluctantly, he gave me her name and promised to ask his sister for Sandra's number, the same sister who worked at a salon and had unknowingly crossed paths with Marcus and his wife. It felt like grasping at straws. Yet, it was all I had. When I finally reached Sandra, her voice on the phone was a mix of sorrow and fierce clarity, a woman who had been pushed to the edge but refused to fall apart. She didn't hesitate to meet me after work. Our first conversation was raw and unfiltered, no polite niceties, just two broken souls laying their pain on the table. We shared our stories, the betrayals that mirrored each other, the silent tears hidden behind forced smiles. But there was one thing we both felt deeply. The need for justice, the urge to fight back. Sandra's eyes held a fire I hadn't seen in months. He thinks he's untouchable, she said with a bitter laugh, but together? We'll show him what happens when he plays with the wrong people. We began piecing together what we knew about Marcus and Julie, the lies, the secret meetings, the cover-ups. It wasn't just revenge, it was reclaiming power and dignity from the ruins of our shattered trust. And as we started to plan, I felt a strange sense of rebirth. The anger was still there, fierce and burning, but there was now also a purpose, a shared mission, a bond formed not from friendship but from a mutual quest for justice. Along the way, we faced small setbacks. Julie's seemingly innocent text messages turned out to be loaded with manipulations, Marcus's reputation at work, a fragile facade cracking under pressure. Even some colleagues caught wind of the tension, whispering about the Cold War brewing behind office doors. But it was in these moments of uncertainty that Sandra and I found strength in our alliance, turning our shared pain into a tactical weapon. Looking back, it was strange how betrayal brought two strangers together, forging an alliance so unlikely yet unbreakable. And as we mapped our steps forward, the path was clear: strike where it hurts. Tear down the lies, dismantle the facades, and make them face the consequences. The moment Sandra and I sealed our uneasy alliance, we knew the path ahead was treacherous, filled with risks, tensions, and the constant threat of discovery. But beneath all that, the fire burning inside me was no longer just about pain. It had evolved into a fierce resolve to reclaim what was stolen and to make Marcus and Julie understand the full weight of their betrayal. Our first move was subtle, surgical. Something that wouldn't immediately tip them off but would gradually unravel the fragile sanctuary they had built. Sandra, with her quiet strength and sharp mind, took charge of the financial front. We began by quietly shifting the ownership of the house. What had once felt like shared refuge was transformed into a battleground. Using a cleverly crafted document, I was named the sole owner, signed by Julie without suspicion during what she thought was just routine paperwork. I still remember the look on Julie's face the first time I casually mentioned the insurance renewal, her indifferent signature unknowingly setting this plan into motion. It was maddening how blind trust can be weaponized. Meanwhile, Sandra wielded her own power at home. She emptied the joint bank accounts she shared with Marcus, selling off his prized car, an act that was both symbolic and strategically devastating. She covertly leased out her house to a new tenant and secured a restraining order against Marcus that left him legally barred from entering her property. It was the coldest kind of justice, unseen but impenetrable. But our plan was not just financial, it was psychological warfare. We blocked every credit card Marcus and Julie had access to, cutting off their financial lifelines one by one. To the outside world, they still seemed free, but the walls were closing in. I imagined Marcus arriving for a lavish vacation, clueless that no money would be accessible and that their carefully crafted lies were about to disintegrate. At work, Marcus remained the same arrogant provocateur. But little did he know that while he boasted of his conquest and mocked me among colleagues, we were closing the noose. Our revenge was meticulous and relentless. One day, Marcus's pride led him astray. He proudly flaunted intimate chats with Julie to his friends. Scandalous, humiliating proof of their affair. I seized the moment, recording every cruel word he uttered. When those whispers reached me, I sent the evidence directly to HR, demanding sanctions for workplace harassment that had left me mentally exhausted. Across the office, whispers turned into a storm. Marcus was confronted, his false bravado shattered. The HR's promise of termination was a cold bomb, a slightly hollow victory in a war that had cost me so much. But even then, I felt a strange calm. It was the peace of knowing that justice was catching up. Throughout this chaotic time, my closest friends, Joshua and even the sometimes abrasive Noah, became my pillars. Joshua reminded me through late-night calls that my worth was not defined by betrayal, and Noah's blunt honesty was a constant check on my spiraling thoughts. Emotionally, the process was a roller coaster. Some nights, the weight of what had happened pressed so heavily I doubted myself. Was the price of revenge worth it? But every time doubt crept in, Sandra's steady courage reignited my resolve. We shared moments of vulnerability, laughter, and quiet reflection, two people shaped by pain but united through purpose. Julie and Marcus tried to hold on to control, but as the evidence mounted and their resources vanished, cracks appeared, arguments, desperate calls, frantic plans to salvage what was left. I could almost taste their panic, and though the satisfaction was deeply satisfying, it was tempered by the bitter knowledge that trust once broken is not so easily restored. This revenge was more than payback, it was a lesson carved into their lives, a message that deceit and cruelty come with consequences. The moment Marcus's arrogance crossed the line was unexpected yet inevitable. He wasn't just brazen in his betrayal at home. He flaunted his conquest without a shred of remorse in the very place where I faced him every day, the office. It was one of those rare afternoons when the air in the break room felt heavier than usual, buzzing with a dark undercurrent of whispered gossip that swiftly turned into outright mockery, all at my expense. Marcus swaggered around, boasting loudly to his circle of colleagues about taking what was mine, his words dripping with venomous pride. He even went so far as to read out loud the intimate, provocative messages Julie had sent him, all designed to humiliate me and elevate his twisted sense of victory. The sting wasn't just in the betrayal but in watching him weaponize it against me, turning my pain into a source of his twisted amusement. But I wasn't broken. Something had shifted inside me over the past few months, a hard-won resilience born of heartbreak and quiet fury. That day, I did what I had long planned. I recorded Marcus's crude confessions and shared the full, damning evidence with our company's HR department. I detailed not just the affair but the toxic harassment, the bullying, and the mental toll it had taken on me. The reaction was immediate. The office that once whispered secrets now faced a storm of accountability. Marcus's once untouchable facade cracked. Meetings were held behind closed doors, hushed phone calls exchanged, and whispers turned into official warnings. To some colleagues, this was a vindication, to others, a cautionary tale about the cost of deceit. Watching Marcus's descent was bittersweet. The pride in his eyes dimmed with each word from HR announcing suspension and impending termination. But beneath that was an ache, a reminder of how far I had come from the shattered man on the rooftop, to someone who refused to let betrayal define him. Yet, the battle wasn't just external. Office politics are murky waters. There were those who sympathized with Marcus, those who doubted my motives, and even friends trying to navigate the increasing tension between us. In this crucible, my closest allies, Joshua, with his unwavering support, and even the blunt but loyal Noah, helped me hold on to my sanity. They reminded me that this was bigger than personal revenge, it was about reclaiming respect and setting boundaries. Through late-night reflections and painful conversations, I realized that while Marcus's ruin was a form of justice, it was also a catalyst for my own growth. Betrayal had stripped away my illusions but never my identity. I was learning to rebuild, not merely on the ruins of what was lost, but on the strength of who I had become. As the dust settled, I made a conscious choice not to let hatred consume me entirely. The storm had passed, but the scars remained. Reminders of the fiery trial that forged a new path. This victory was bittersweet, justice served, but at the price of shattered relationships and fragile trust. The chapter of betrayal, revenge, and shattered trust had finally closed, but its lessons lingered deep within me, carved into the very foundation of who I had become. The scars were real, but so was the strength that grew from them. Sandra and I found ourselves standing at the edge of a new horizon, the smoke of our shared battles clearing to reveal an unexpected opportunity, a fresh start in Seattle. For the first time in what felt like forever, I embraced a future unburdened by lies, pain, and manipulation. Seattle wasn't just a new city on a map, it was a symbol of renewal, a place where we could rebuild not just our careers but our identities. Sandra, with her fierce intelligence and quiet resilience, became more than an ally. She was a mirror to my struggles and a testament to the power of survival when two wounded souls come together. Her journey mirrored mine, betrayed by the one she trusted most, yet unbroken and unbowed. Together, we weren't victims, we were warriors forging new paths. I recall the bittersweet moments packing up what was once ours, boxes filled with remnants of a life that no longer belonged to me. Each item a memory, both painful and precious, a silent farewell to illusions once held dear. And yet, amidst the melancholy, there was a budding hope. Leaving meant more than escape, it meant choice. The choice to rewrite my story on my terms. In Seattle, I stepped into a role twice as challenging but equally rewarding. The client company that once was a distant connection now became my new platform, a place where my talents were recognized without the shadow of Marcus over my shoulders. The raise was not just financial, it was a validation of perseverance in the face of hardship. Our plans for the future were punctuated by moments of laughter, simple joys that had eluded us for so long. From searching for the perfect apartment to late-night talks about dreams not yet lost, Sandra and I were rediscovering what it meant to live fully, unapologetically. But even in this new chapter, emotional complexity remained. There were days when the weight of betrayal threatened to resurface, when memories of Julie's laughter, Marcus's lies, and the loneliness of the past year pressed heavily on my chest. Yet, we learned to face these ghosts together, not as victims, but as survivors with renewed strength. One unforgettable night, while watching the Seattle skyline shimmer beyond our apartment window, Sandra said quietly, "We're not defined by what was done to us, but by what we do next." Those words became our mantra, reminding me that hope is a choice, resilience a journey. Amidst these reflections, I often thought of Joshua and Noah, my anchors during the storm. Joshua's steady voice on difficult nights reminded me that friendship is a lifeline, while Noah's relentless honesty kept me grounded. Their support was a quiet reminder that healing is never solitary. As our belongings were shipped halfway across the country and the final plane ticket was booked for a month-long escape to the Caribbean, I felt a peace I never imagined possible. The sun on my skin, the sound of waves crashing, they were small, tangible symbols of freedom after a long, dark winter. This isn't just a story about betrayal and revenge. It's a story about transformation, about facing the abyss, walking through fire, and emerging with scars that tell a story of survival and hope. It's about the unexpected friendships born from shared pain and the courage to rebuild a life worth living. If you've ever stood on the edge of despair and found a way to step forward, share your city below. Your strength fuels this journey. The story may end here for now, but the journey, for all of us, continues. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. Your support truly means the world to me. If you found this story compelling, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow and allows me to keep bringing you more content like this. I'd also love to hear your thoughts and feedback in the comments below. What part of the story resonated with you the most? Or any suggestions on topics you want to see next? Your input helps make this channel better and more meaningful. So once again, thank you for being here. Stay strong, stay inspired, and I'll see you in the next video.